Haha, yes sir. We back with another original right here. Original content from your boy, Mr. DDG94 in the building, most definitely, man. So without further ado, man, let's get right into it, man. 5 underrated albums that deserve their flowers. Now, these are albums that are really, it really should be I really shouldn't say underrated. I really should say unappreciated albums that deserve their flowers. Like, these were banger albums, but they got overshadowed by possibly bigger albums, or there was something more musically going on, or they was just in this, or they was just an album in a strong year. There's always strong years: 2001, 2004, 2005, 2015, 2017. You know what I'm saying? Albums and projects can get overshadowed by just strong years of music. So, without further ado, let's get right into this. These albums deserve their flowers, and hopefully you give it to them. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Yes, most definitely. This album right here deserves their flowers without question. It's not even up for debate. Scarface, Deeply Rooted. This album is underappreciated and underrated as fuck. This was a really good album. Now, how I came across this album was I went on a road trip with my dad, and he just bought the CD. Yes, my dad was still buying CDs, showing his age. But he bought this CD, and it was, he ripped it out the plastic, he put it in there, and from track 1 all the way to the end, I was amazed at what I heard on that long road trip all the way down to Mississippi for the blues festival. Man, like me and him just in that car listening to this album. I think we listened to this album like 3 times on the way down there. This album was just that good. I really like it, the messaging behind it. Now, obviously, this album, now for those of you that don't know, this album came out in 2015. 2015 was definitely a strong year in music. I say it's like one of the few last years where artists actually gave a fuck about putting out good projects. You know, you had the Drake and Meek Mill beef going on. Future was going crazy. It was just a lot going on in 2015, man. Just like arguably one of the last good years of music. And obviously, that biggest elephant in the room of 2015, the most overrated album, in my personal opinion, the most overrated album known to man, To Pimp a Butterfly, came out, which I'm pretty sure would have put a big eclipse over this album. Now, the reason I say this album probably deserves its flowers more than probably the most overrated album of this year is because this album did exactly what the most overrated album did, but did it better and simplified it. Didn't have to go into these deep, dark meanings to try to figure it all out. Scarface paints the picture for you clear as fucking day.
We must internalize the flatulation of the matter by transmitting the effervescence of the Indonesian proximity in order to further segregate the crux of my venereal infection. Now, if I may retain my liquids here for one moment, I'd like to continue the redundance of my quote-unquote intestinal tract. See, because to preclude on the issue of world domination would only circumvent, circumcise the revelation that reflects the aphrodisiac symptoms which now perpetrates the Jericho's activation.
You don't have to go into these deep dives and all these artistic, finding to figure out whether whether to figure out how each album is, Scarface just puts it right there in front of you and gives you the context, and he says it to you in a way that makes you, you know what I'm saying, like, yo, never thought about it that way. Damn, he's spitting some real shit here. You know what I'm saying? And you know, he really giving jewels. He really kicking game on this album. So if people don't want to give him, you know, his flowers for this album, then just give it a listen. I guarantee you will listen to this album, you be like, damn, this is kind of better than To Pimp a Butterfly. But that's just me though.
No, nigga. No. 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 Nigga. No.
Yeah. Another album that was overshadowed. Well, realistically, it was overshadowed by the person who made it because of his antics over the years. But let's keep it a buck. Born to Rap is arguably Game's best album. I know a lot of people gonna say Documentary. You can say Documentary. I understand it does have a lot of bangers. It does have a lot of replay value, but so does this album as well. This album has the same. It may not hit this. It may not have the amount of hits on it, but Game was in his bag on this album. And I'm not talking about he was just rapping to be rapping on some lyrical, spiritual, miracle, you know, all that Eminem type rap.
Get that nigga off my shit right now. Get that nigga the fuck off my shit right now. I don't give a fuck who that is. Nigga, Eminem, Skittles, Starburst. Get that nigga the fuck off my shit. I'm not playing.
He's the GOAT though, bro.
You heard that shit? That nigga is not the GOAT. Tell me something he said on there then that make him the GOAT. Say one bar. Okay.
No, he was just talking his shit on this album. And he was just giving you bar play on top of bar play, metaphors that was going over your head. You had to listen back to it, be like, oh shit, this nigga snapping. Like Game was just talking his shit on this album. And let's keep it a bean, bro. This was arguably Game's best album by far, man. Obviously the biggest hit on here was obviously one of the late great Nipsey Hussle. One of his last verses we heard from him would come from this album, and I say one of his last verses would come from this album, most definitely. You know, it's kind of scary listening to this album now. It's kind of scary listening to the Welcome Home off this album when you consider Nip kind of predicted how his death would be on this song. So if you haven't listened to it, then it's kind of scary, you know, because he kind of predicted how he would pass away. He kind of predicted how his death would be going forward. But most definitely, that's arguably the biggest highlight on this album for sure, is the song with Nipsey Hussle. But don't get it twisted, Game was giving out some great songs on here. You got Gold Daytonas. It's a lot of good gems on here, bro, that y'all should really give this album a listen. It's just a dope album, dog, and it's just one of his best, bro. He just spitting on this motherfucker, and it's just going crazy. But yeah, most definitely, man, this album right here is underrated, underappreciated, and definitely deserves his flowers. Even though the Game kind of did it to himself, because he said that this was supposed to be his retirement album, and we all know that's a fucking lie. But it is what it is, though. Most definitely, this album still deserves his flowers. Oh man. You want to talk about a underrated gem? We gotta talk about Freeway's debut album, Philadelphia Freeway. Yo, this album right here is a underrated banger right here, dog. Underrated for sure. Man, I'm talking about, bro, you listen to this album, you be like, how was this not album? How did this album not get the recognition it deserves? Well, I'll tell you why. It came out in 2003. I don't think y'all remember who else came out in 2003. It had something to do with 2 Quarters.
I'm like, what do you say fuck me for?
Wink, wink. But yeah, man, this album went overshadowed mainly because it came out at arguably the worst fucking time. The fact that this album got thrown into the wolves and did not come out great at all. Granted, it did peak at number 5. This album did peak at number 5, but man, did it shoot down so far after I think its first couple of weeks on the charts. It shot down super far and never got the love and appreciation it deserves. Most definitely, this album went completely underrated, bruh. If you was able to cop this album and listen to this album, you would be hearing, just like the Game album, you would just be hearing niggas talk they shit. First and foremost, shout out to Petey Crack, by the way. Let's just get that out the way right now. Shout out to Petey Crack. That nigga was going crazy on this album for sure. Arguably, the best song on here is probably the one you see on your screen right now. I would say this was the best one by far. This is like my most favorite go back to song as far as this album goes. But man, if the man of 2 Quarters did not come out just a couple of weeks prior to this album's release, I guarantee you this album would have got a little bit more love and a little bit more appreciation if this album would have came out a little bit earlier than when it was supposed to. If you don't know, 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying album came out February 6th. This album came out February 25th. So this came out at the end of February. By then, it was already too late. 50 Cent had established himself. If y'all don't know how big 50 Cent was in 2003, just know that a lot of your favorite rappers or a lot of albums that you really fuck with was not going to surpass that nigga at all. And I'm going to leave it right there. This album is underrated, underappreciated, and deserves its flowers. Most definitely. Most definitely, man. Had to throw an R&B album on here just to mix it up a little bit. Had to throw an R&B album on here. And what better R&B album to throw on here than Lyfe Jennings' debut album, Life, whatever his jail number is. It's clearly on the screen. I just don't feel like reading it. But anyways, though, most definitely, man, Lyfe Jennings' debut album is an underrated masterpiece in so many ways. I see why a lot of dudes that was going through regrets of their relationships or of their past doings was bumping this album like crazy. Hood niggas was bumping this album like crazy. I never in my life heard of an R&B album, well, outside of R. Kelly's Chocolate Factory and Confessions by Usher. I've never heard an R&B album get bumped in the hood by niggas. I'm talking about niggas with big ass speakers in their trunk, cars sitting on 24s in them, you know, bumping some Lyfe Jennings. And it's understandable why. This album speaks directly to people who are going through bad times, downfalls, you know, baby mama drama. Yo, like this album reaches out to the average everyday hood nigga, bro. This album touches on so many topics, from relationships to life decisions to just walking in on women, stepping into a woman's life if she already got kids and stuff like that. Like, yo, this album just speaks to the everyday hood nigga, bro. And it's understandable why niggas in the hood was bumping this album and they Honda Civics on 24s. But most definitely, man, this album is underrated, unappreciated, and definitely deserves its flowers. Alrighty, man. You know how this go. You know exactly how this go. Albums that are underrated and unappreciated. Now, this is the number one album because this is the album that inspired me to make this list and to make this video. The album that I'm about to put on here is, some would consider it a classic, but it just don't get its praise like it's supposed to. Now, granted, the single off this album went crazy, and the rest of the songs on here went crazy as well. But man, this album doesn't get talked about enough when we talking about hip hop classics right here. And I feel like and come on, dog, these are arguably some of the best producers in the game from the 2000s. These were arguably the two best producers you could put on your track, not named Timberland, not named Kanye. If these niggas was on your track, you had a complete fucking banger. And the fact that they put an album out and it didn't get the recognition that I feel like it deserves, man, without further ado, the number one most underrated, unappreciated album that deserves its flowers, that inspired this entire list, is...
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Yes, most definitely. The Neptunes presents Clones. This album from start to fucking well, I ain't gonna say from start to fucking finish. Once you get to like the rock portion, once you get to the rock portion, if you into the rock music portion, then yeah, this album may be from start to finish for you. But if you ain't into that rock music and you skipping past, like, yo, skipping past that, I understand. So, but I'm not gonna sit up here and act like the hip hop portion of this album, the hip hop, the R&B, and the pop portion of this entire album were not fire. Let's not act like that. Come on, man. The main single off of this goddamn album, I was just frying. I know that I can't even know. That's what I'm showing you. You know I want you. You know I want you, babe.
Cut that bitch off! Next caller!
Come on, man. Come on, man. Then you got other hits on here like Busta Rhymes, Move Girl, I Light Your Ass on Fire. Bitch, I light your ass on fire. Move Girl, I light your ass on fire. Come on, man. It's a song on here with Snoop Dogg that I cannot play. I wanted to play it in the background, but that song is heavily copyrighted for some reason. You cannot play that song on YouTube at all. It will get blocked in a heartbeat. It's hard to find the song. It's very hard to find the song. Pause. No Diddy. But it's just not. It's is not playable, but it's arguably one of the best songs on this. In my personal opinion, it's the best song on this album because Pharrell and Snoop don't miss. I'm telling you right now, Pharrell and Snoop is an underrated duo that people don't talk about. I think that should be my next video, underrated duos. Hey man, this original content going crazy right now. Y'all need to tune in. Y'all need to tap in, man. For real, y'all niggas need to tap in, man. I'm coming through with this original content. I'm brainstorming now. I'm changing up the format over here. So get used to it. Who knows? You might see more original content than ever before on this channel. But the point that I'm trying to make is the Neptunes Presents the Clones is a great fucking album. The production, you already know the production is 10 out of 10 immaculate. Minus them rock songs. Them rock songs, you can miss me with those. But the rock, the rap, the R&B and the pop portions of this album, by far some of the best fucking production I've ever heard. And the fact that this album does not get the recognition it deserves is it's criminal. It's criminal how this album has not been given its flowers. Come on, dog. Snoop Dogg, Nelly, Busta Rhymes, Ludacris, Jay-Z, The Clips, shit, even Birdman on this album. Come on, dog. Come on, dog. This album go crazy, bro. That's how good this album is. This album go crazy, but hey, man, most definitely, this is an underrated gem. It deserves its flowers, and we gonna give it its flowers right here. If y'all have not listened to this album, I guarantee you will not regret it. The production on here is fucking immaculate. But without further ado, man, that's just gonna about do it for this one, man. I will see you all in the next one. Till then, peace out.